Hi, my name's Bob Kolvoord. I'm a professor of integrated science and technology at James Madison University, where I also serve as the Dean of the College of Integrated Science and Engineering. And I'm excited to have a chance to share our work with you at the virtual AAG 2020. Our work is focused on what happens when students use GIS over a long period of time during the school year. We focus on high school seniors and we have them involved in a year-long class. And we've had the opportunity to do research comparing the impact of the use of technology on these students compared to students, classmates of theirs that are very similar but haven't had the technology experience. The research I'm sharing today is the result of a collaboration across a number of institutions, including James Madison University, Northwestern, Georgetown University, American University, and Dartmouth. And it's the result of a group of collaborators working across disciplines to try and understand the impact of GIS use on spatial thinking. So here's the outline for the short presentation today. I want to start by talking about the geospatial semester, which is the setting for the research that we've been doing, and it's a project we've been running in Virginia for a number of years. Talk about some of the details of the research study, and I've shared results at prior AAGs, so this, in many ways, this is an update talk. I'll then share the new results that we have for you today, and also talk about future work as we try and extend these studies. So as I mentioned earlier, this is a multi-university collaboration and it's focused on the geospatial semester. This is a project that we've undertaken in Virginia for 15 years now, and we've seen thousands of students participate in it. And as a consequence, we have a fairly long baseline of experience having students do year-long GIS courses in high school. And we've also done a number of pilot studies looking at different aspects of the geospatial semester experience and trying to understand how the use of GIS might impact students' spatial thinking skills, both behaviorally and cognitively. As we've looked at the literature, we think that this is the first attempt that looks at both behavioral and cognitive impacts of technology in a K-12 classroom setting. If that's not the case, please let us know, because I don't want to make a claim that's not true. But hopefully, as we unwind this for you, you'll get a chance to see the kind of work that we've been doing and what it might tell us about the impact of GIS on student spatial thinking skills. We started the geospatial semester in 2005 in 4 high schools across Virginia, and it's grown to a little more than 24 high schools right now in the 2020 version. And you can get a sense of the layout of these schools, some of these schools, on the map below. In order to make sense of this study, you need to understand a little bit more about the geospatial semester. So the geospatial semester is a year-long dual enrollment course that's taught in the local high schools, typically to seniors. And it's what we call mentored dual enrollment. So that is a JMU faculty member regularly visits the classroom, interacts with the teacher and the students, and helps provide technical support and also project support. The geospatial semester experience is available for dual enrollment credit at JMU, and it culminates with an extended project that's driven by student curiosity and interest, all focused on geospatial technologies, particularly GIS. This slide shows an example project, final project from the geospatial semester, and this student was looking at e-scooter availability related to demographics in Arlington, Virginia, right across the Potomac River from Washington, D.C. And you can see the analysis that they did as they tried to figure out optimal locations to place the scooters. This is very typical of a final project of the geospatial semester and shows the range of analysis that students can apply after a year of study with GIS. We do keep up with the technology in the geospatial semester, and we've embraced ArcGIS Online and story maps as a way for students to both frame and describe their final projects. And I should note that final projects do include an oral presentation to JMU faculty. I'm not going to take the time to show you each of these 3 projects. You can take a look at the URLs if you'd like, but I will note that they cover human trafficking, looking at change over time. They look at police and fire coverage in large American cities. And then they also look at the shrinking national monuments and their impact on tribal lands in the western part of the U.S. Let's talk about the study that we did. So we were working with students that are participating in the geospatial semester, and then what we're calling a control or comparison group of very similar students in 2 Virginia school districts, large suburban school districts. And the slide indicates the different kinds of things that we did in the study. One of the things that we did was we identified a pool of students not taking the geospatial semester that we could use to match against the students in the geospatial semester using a technique called propensity score matching, where we can basically find students that are as close as possible with the exception of taking the class. And the study then gives us a chance to take a look at both the behavioral and the cognitive impact of GIS and comparing it with spatial problem solving. I'll discuss more details about the study in the next slide. This slide lays out the different parts of our study, starting with the pre-test where we looked at juniors that were not going to take the geospatial semester and some assessment of their particular characteristics. And then we had 2 time points in the study, before the start of their senior year and at the end of the senior year. And I'm delighted to tell you that 90+% of students returned for the time 2 study. And we were very grateful because without that, we wouldn't have had a study to share with you. And I show the different instruments that we apply at time 1 and time 2. And I will note also that the cognitive part of this is we took a subset of the students to Georgetown University and we had them in their fMRI machine to do the cognitive work, and that happened both at time 1 and at time 2. So we're going to share 2 new results with you today. As you might imagine, this is a very rich study. In fact, roughly 200 students participated in the study, a slight preponderance of females compared to males in the study, and about 30% students of color. The 2 pieces we're going to feature today are what factors actually predict student enrollment in a course like the geospatial semester. What causes high school seniors to want to take that class, and what can we understand about that from their prior experience? And then secondly, we had a chance to look at, and we did a survey of students' spatial activities, both in childhood and in adolescence. And we're going to share a little bit about how childhood spatial activities might predict adolescent spatial activities. Here's a little more detail on the research questions we're asking regarding the factors impacting students' enrollment choices. For this particular study, we had a larger sample because we only needed a single time point. And that sample was 60% female and almost 40% students of color. And what you see in the results on the slide is a little more than a quarter of them had had some prior exposure to GIS, either through coursework, through some kind of experience in class, or having a parent who was involved in a GIS-related industry, or some other kind of exposure. But only about 1 in 8 had any firsthand experience using GIS. But the interesting thing here is that prior experience makes a huge difference. It's a 7-fold difference in terms of inclining students to get further involved and to take a year-long course like the geospatial semester. Interestingly, there also seems to be a strong bias towards males doing this, with a 4-fold increase in the number of students taking the class versus females. However, also interestingly, race and ethnicity appears to play no factor. This is work that's going to appear in the Journal of Geography. The paper is currently in revision. And in the next slide, I show some of the statistics behind these findings. The final new result we want to share today is about our study regarding childhood and adolescent spatial activities. So we gave participants the Childhood Activities Questionnaire and the Spatial Activities Questionnaire, which are self-reports asking them just to let us know what kinds of activities they were involved in when they were younger or in their adolescence. Spatial activities would be things like playing with blocks, sporting activities. Non-spatial activities could be things like reading and coloring. And we discovered that there are some interesting predictive effects. So the participation in childhood spatial activities seems to be an indicator of what folks will be involved with as adolescents. And interestingly, that adolescent activity did seem to have a correlation with their spatial thinking abilities. And we used things like the mental rotation test as a way to benchmark their spatial thinking activities. The other interesting thing was that there's no cumulative effect, that it doesn't seem that if you hadn't been involved in childhood that there was a sort of makeup if you were involved in more things as an adolescent. And this is research that we're going to publish in the journal Cognitive Research Principles and Implications. And the paper is also currently in revision, and we hope it'll be out later this year. And so you can learn more about it. And again, some of the statistics behind these findings are included in the next slide. So as we come to the end of this short presentation, I want to tell you what we're up to now and where we're headed. We are still finishing our analysis, and we're hoping to publish the fMRI paper later this year. It turns out that analysis is a little trickier than we had imagined it to be. And we're going to continue to share the results. This was a very rich study, and I think it's one of the most extensive looking at student use of GIS over an extended period of time. And these various measures are going to allow us to, I think, have a number of findings about student spatial thinking, particularly in adolescence. So we think finally, after a long period in the wilderness, we have some actual evidence for the positive impact of GIS on students, but there's clearly much more to do. If you do have questions, we'll can interact during the virtual piece of the conference, or you're welcome to email me and be happy to correspond. My email is here. And in the next slide, I'm just going to share the many people and the funders that have been involved in supporting this work over time. Thanks very much for participating and having a look at this presentation. I look forward to interacting with you.